Long ago, when the rivers ran free and the forests stretched endlessly beyond the horizon, there were two great worlds, each unaware of how deeply they would change the other. One world was old, built of stone and iron, where kings ruled beneath towering castles and the land bent beneath their will. The other was ancient, alive with the whisper of trees, where the rivers sang and the wind carried the voices of those who had walked before. For a time, these worlds remained apart. But when the great ships came, heavy with men who sought to carve their mark into the untouched land, the old world and the ancient one collided. They called her Pocahontas, the daughter of a great chief, a girl who ran with the wind and spoke to the spirits of the earth. The Englishmen who arrived on her shores called her something else: princess, diplomat, proof that two worlds could be one. And so a bargain was struck. A nobleman's son, Henry, was given to her people, his name spoken in solemn tones as a promise of peace. In return, Pocahontas was taken across the vast, unbroken sea, carried to a land unlike any she had ever known. The English believed they had secured something precious. She would be their symbol, their triumph, the thread that wove two nations together. She believed them too. For a time, the exchange was meant to be a gesture of peace. England sent one of their own, a nobleman's son named Henry, to the Powhatan people, and in return, Pocahontas was brought across the sea. The voyage was long and grueling. The ship creaked beneath the weight of the waves, and the salted wind stung her skin. She had never been surrounded by so much water, so much emptiness. At night, she dreamt of home, the endless forests, the song of the river, the whisper of the trees. But when she awoke, there was only the vast churning sea stretching in every direction. London was a city of stone and smoke. The moment she stepped off the ship, the air pressed in on her, thick with the scent of damp wood, horse dung, and the strange sourness of burning coal. People gathered to see her, whispering in hushed tones, pointing at the foreign princess in her embroidered cloak and beadwork. A noble woman reached out, running her fingers over Pocahontas' sleeve. "How delicate," she murmured, as if Pocahontas were an artifact instead of a person. They called her beautiful, exotic. They smiled at her, praised her, dressed her in silks and pearls. She was shown off at grand feasts, seated next to lords and ladies who spoke to her as if she were a curiosity, something to be admired but never understood. For a time, she tried to embrace it. She learned their customs, spoke their language, sat among them in their great halls and listened to their endless conversations. But their words were cold, their laughter hollow. She missed the warmth of them home, the feel of earth beneath her feet, the wind that carried the voices of her ancestors. And yet, she could still feel it, the land. Weak, distant, suffocated beneath stone and iron, but not gone. Waiting. She heard whispers of Henry in passing conversation. The English lord scoffed at the idea that he might ever return. The boys lost, they sneered over their goblets of wine. No doubt running naked through the woods by now. They laughed, but Pocahontas felt something uneasy settle in her chest. She wondered if he had fought against his new life as much as she fought against hers. If he had tried to hold on to England the way she tried to hold on to home. Or if, in the end, he had simply let go. She had no way of knowing. And soon, she had greater things to concern herself with. It began with a simple act. one of kindness, one of memory. Pocahontas crafted a necklace, weaving strands of thin fibers together, adorning them with beads made of polished river stones and seashells. It was something small, a reminder of home, something to keep her hands from trembling. She gifted it to the woman who had first dressed her in English silks. The woman gasped at its beauty. By the end of the evening, 2 more noble women asked if they, too, could have one. The necklaces became a quiet sensation. Wives of noblemen wore them at court, claiming they were unlike anything they had ever owned. Some said they felt calmer when they wore them. Others spoke of vivid dreams, dreams where they stood beneath towering trees, where they felt the wind rushing through their hair. Pocahontas should have questioned it then, but instead she made more. The whispers started soon after. The noble woman who had first received a necklace woke one morning with soil beneath her fingernails. She swore she had not left her bed, yet her feet were stained with mud. Another woman claimed she had heard drumming in the night, though no musicians played. A man who had purchased one for his wife found himself drawn to the river without understanding why. He stood at the edge for hours, staring into the dark waters, unable to move. And then the city itself began to change. At first, it was nothing more than vines creeping up stone walls, flowers blooming out of season. People found it strange, but not alarming. But the roots came next, twisting, gnarled things that cracked through cobblestone streets, that curled around lampposts and doorways. The great towers of London groaned as ivy thickened along their surfaces, the weight of it pulling the stones apart. The Thames swelled, rising with thick, murky waters, carrying the scent of moss and earth. The river churned with fish, long thought extinct, creatures that belonged to a time before England had tamed its lands. Panic spread. The people of London tried to fight back. They burned the vines, hacked at the roots, tore the necklaces from their throats. But it was too late. The land had accepted them. Pocahontas watched as nature took back what was stolen. She saw nobles claw at the ground, weeping as their homes were swallowed by the rising forest. She listened to the terrified cries of men and women who had once welcomed her with open arms. She felt nothing. She had been brought here to be their bridge. Instead, she had been their undoing. The land had never forgotten. It had only been waiting for a way in. The sky darkened. Storm clouds churned over the city, and the wind howled through the streets. And then, in the distance, a sound cut through the chaos. Drums. She turned toward the river. There, cutting through the mist, were ships. But not English ships. Long canoes glided silently across the water, their dark forms sharp against the horizon. Figures stood at the bow, spears raised, faces painted with the markings of warriors. And at the front of them, all stood a man. His skin was marked with the symbols of her people. His hair had been braided with beads and feathers. He wore no armor, no crown, no silk finery. But Pocahontas knew him. Henry. The boy England had traded away had returned, not as their own, but as something else entirely. He had become one with the Powhatan people, and now he led them. The English had once believed they were bringing civilization to the wild, but the wild had come for them instead. Thank you for joining us in the world of Twilight Fables. If you enjoyed this tale and want to hear more stories like this, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more.